it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. In today's video, I've got two topics to cover. The first one is I have had my hands on the ROG Ally X for about a week, and it's complicated. And the second news story is that you've got to pick up this toolkit for your Steam Deck. But before I jump into it all, I got to do the YouTuber thing. Help me get to 100,000 subscribers, please. I want the silver play button. I can't make this, feel like a teamwork thing or whatever like other YouTubers do. I really want the silver play button. So if you watch the channel and you're not subscribed, help me out by subscribing and setting your notifications to all. All right, let's jump into the first news story here. Yes, the rumors are true. I've had my hands on the ROG Ally X for a week. I had the original ROG Ally. I got that one early too through Xbox back in the day. And if you go back to my video, I wasn't super hot on it. There's a lot of problems with the original ROG Ally, ranging from the micro SD card slot. I never had it actually fry a micro SD card, but it would actually push the micro SD card out. The battery life was horrific. Like, yeah, you could get 60 FPS in something like Diablo or Forza Horizon, but it didn't really matter if you were playing for 90 minutes. I had issues with the heat output hurting my hands. The ergonomics were terrible. And it seems like, just like with the Steam Deck OLED, they took a lot of these complaints to heart over at Asus and really made the version that should have shipped originally, but then they kind of screwed it all up by raising the price to $800, which I genuinely don't understand. So let's just start out with like general thoughts about the ROG Ally X. I'm going to talk about performance second because ergonomics are something I really want to focus on here. So the original ROG Ally, if you've never held one before, you can go down to Best Buy. They have a display in pretty much every Best Buy I've been to. It's very sharp. It hurts your hands after a while, and you also get like soreness in this like meat part of where your thumb connects to your hand. They did improve it quite a bit for the Ally X. They made it a little bit more rounded on the back, but as far as I can tell, the top part of the casing is exactly the same. So when I was using it in my TV room. That's my preferred place to play. I have movie theater style recliners. It like still makes my thumbs sore. They don't hurt like they did on the original Ally, but like it's still not quite good enough. So I think for the ROG Ally 2, whatever they're going to call it, they should really go more for the top half and cut out those like sharped off edges, because even though there's a little bit of a slope with those three lines, I don't think they're really working out. That's really my only ergonomic complaint though, because they did move the buttons a little bit and they're easier to click, which is great. And speaking of click, they do click a lot better. They're less mushy than they are on the original Ally. And that's one of the only things I actually definitely prefer about the hardware with the Ally X versus the Steam Deck OLED. The buttons, like the face buttons, just feel a whole lot better, which shouldn't be surprising if you've ever held a Steam Deck, because there's tons of problems with like the B button sticking, the buttons being too small, X, Y, and Z. Like people have to send them in all the time because of the face buttons. So yeah, I'm giving that small win to the ROG Ally X because I already really liked the Ally's buttons before, and they just went ahead and made them better. Another thing they massively improved is the joysticks. They're so floaty on the original Ally, you never really felt like you had precision. I don't know if they made them shorter or what, but this time around they are a lot tighter. You get a lot more precision. My main game that I play, which I'll talk about in a little bit more, is Forza Horizon 4 and 5, and my immediate skill increase on the Ally X was noticeable from the first time I booted it up, just because that left joystick gives you just that much, a little bit more of control. As far as the trigger placement goes, I like it. I think it's fine. It wasn't that great on the original Ally because it was so thin and sharp, like the way it was rounded off on the ends. So like it felt like a little fatiguing to try and get the trigger to pull all the way when you were playing games, or when I was playing games, sorry. But yeah, this one, because of the new changes to the back of the device, I can pull the triggers without finger fatigue, which is great. And I also noticed that the left bumper and right bumper are a little bit clickier. They're just a little bit hard to reach when you're playing games. Like I'll talk about that again, like I just said about Forza a little bit later in the video, but I did have trouble with one specific game with the bumpers. But overall, it is a big step up from the Ally, so I think they're heading in the right direction. And also, I just got to shout out the fact that they have two USB-C ports. I was really hoping for the Steam Deck OLED they would have two USB-C ports, because there's all these attachments like that clip-on back one I just talked about in another video. You can use a dock, you can use a power bank with like extra slots and everything like that, but I just feel like the bare minimum should be 2 slots so you can charge the thing while you're also having other things plugged into it, because unless you got the right dock, unless you got the right laptop attachment or whatever, you need to make sure that it has the right power output, and that just is a level of inconvenience that I would just prefer not to deal with. So I think the solve there is to just put another USB-C port in. Like ASUS figured it out, why can't Valve? But other than that, like hardware wise, it really hasn't changed all all that much. Like if you had the ROG Ally and you absolutely hated how it felt in your hands, or you absolutely loved it, if you loved it, it's going to feel better, which is good. If you hated it, I don't think they made enough changes to really sort of sell you on it, because as I said, it still makes my hands sore if I'm holding it in the wrong position. If I'm sitting on a regular couch where it's like on my lap, that's fine, obviously, because I'm not like supporting its full weight. But yeah, again, that's something that I really think they need to address going forward. Next up, let's talk about the software experience. This is arguably the worst part of pretty much any Windows handheld, and it's still not amazing on the ROG Ally. The one thing I wish these Windows handhelds could figure out is the ability to use the D-pad and face buttons to control a keyboard. That is the most jarring thing ever, going from the Steam Deck, which lets you pull up a keyboard in desktop mode that you can then use the trackpads to type super easily on, or the D-pad and the face buttons, and it works just fine. Going over to the Ally X, where there is a dedicated keyboard button in their version of the quick access menu, but it just pulls up a floating keyboard that you then have to use the right joystick to actually like click the little buttons or the touchscreen. And I'll tell you right now, neither of those are accurate enough to not be annoying. So when I was playing the main game I play on the Ally, Forza Horizon 4, boot it up for the first time, have to log into Microsoft servers. My email address is very long and so is my password. So yeah, that was just a total pain getting that all typed in. And I feel like it would have been 10,000 times easier if anyone could figure out how to make Windows let you use a controller to operate the keyboard. I cannot believe that that is not a thing yet. Also, with the ROG Ally, the perfect sweet spot between its 720p and 1080p modes is 900p. That's what I use for most games, especially newer games. And when you do that, it blows up the desktop to a point where if you have too many apps in your tray, it'll hide them. It also makes like pinpoint precision mouse movements a little bit more difficult. So when I go to the desktop, I always have to remember to put it back into 1080p mode, because the smaller things are on the screen, for some reason, they're much easier to click. It feels reversed from how it should be, but that's just how it works for me. I don't know, maybe that's a me thing. I will say that a year of software updates to the Armory Crate app has really improved this thing from top to bottom. I stopped using my Ally after around 2 to 3 months because, you know, I like the Steam Deck, and then the OLED came out, and that's still going to be my dedicated gaming device. But like, they've definitely improved the software tenfold. The frame rate limiter works so much better than it did before. I like their little version of the Steam's performance overlay. I don't think it's exactly as good, but it now has a frame time graph, which I really appreciate. It shows you the time, which I love. I love knowing what time it is when I'm gaming. I don't have to look at my watch, which I forgot to put on today. I think they've improved the Armory Crate enough where it is just like a different flavor of what you get on SteamOS, and that's awesome. And then the biggest praise I gotta throw this thing is they were not lying about the battery life. I basically play the same games on the ROG Ally, so I know how long the battery lasts when I'm playing specific games. Forza Horizon 5, I was lucky before to get an hour and 10 minutes out of it, running it at 900p with a mix of medium, high, and low settings. On the ROG Ally X, I got almost 3 hours of battery life. So not only is it a double increase, it's more than double. And I was honestly surprised when the little 10% battery thing came up on Steam, because I was like, oh yeah, I have not charged this thing in like 3 hours. And when I started playing, it wasn't even at 100%. It was at like 95, I think. So yeah, I think the battery life massively improved on this thing, specifically with the games I play, which really makes it worth having for me as someone who loves racing games, especially at 60 FPS like Forza Horizon 4 and 5, because that's the best way to play racing games. So it's basically become my racing game machine, which is awesome. And it's black now, so it looks like a Steam Deck and it's more ergonomic. Like, there's wins across the board there. But like, outside of those two games, I really can't think of anything that I would play on the ROG Ally X over the Steam Deck, because when you get to games that don't run on the Steam Deck, even though the ROG Ally X and its Z1 Extreme processor are that much more powerful than what you get out of the Steam Deck OLED, it's just not enough to make a meaningful difference. So whereas like playing Remnant 2, I guess, on all lowest settings on Steam Deck, you can hover around 30 to like 25 FPS, you know, it's not an amazing experience and it's not one I would recommend. If you do the same thing on the ROG Ally, yeah, you'll get less frame drops, but it's still going to drop below 30, and you can use a little bit higher settings, but I'd argue that the image is degraded so much that it's not really worth it, right? Like, the gulf of performance between the Steam Deck OLED and the ROG Ally X, it's just not big enough to really be something where you should run out and buy it if you're into these games that you just can't run on the Steam Deck. If you are someone who plays a lot of racing games like I do, yeah, this thing really is a no-brainer before you look at the price tag, because it runs racing games like tenfold times better than the Steam Deck, or at least the ones I play. But yeah, I also tested tested Elden Ring, and that was an interesting example because I just assumed because of how well it runs on the Steam Deck, I'd be able to get a rock solid 60 FPS out of it on the ROG Ally X, and that would immediately make it a game that I would play on the Ally X. I was kind of shocked to see that it doesn't really ever hold 60 FPS. It hovers around 50, and if you're running it at 120 hertz and using VRR, it does smooth out the frame drops, but like, again, I say this all the time, I'd prefer a consistent 30 over like 50 to 60 FPS any day of the week. I know that's a personal preference thing, but that is my personal preference. So yeah, I just defaulted to playing Elden Ring back on my Steam Deck, and I didn't really feel like I was losing anything by doing so. So yeah, the three big games I tested: Forza Horizon 4, Forza Horizon 5, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is the one I was like, but like Forza Horizon 4, absolutely phenomenal from top to bottom. It runs at like high, no dynamic settings, 1080p, locked 60. No stutters, no frame drops. It is a perfect experience on this handheld, and that is my favorite Forza Horizon. So I have a Forza Horizon 4 machine now, which is great. Forza Horizon 5 looks better than 4. You need to drop the settings a little bit, but again, if you run that at 900p, you're getting 60 FPS locked, no frame drops. So yeah, it's like de facto the best machine to play Forza Horizon 5 on for me outside of my main gaming PC with a racing wheel. So those two games alone, not enough to really make me go out and buy one, but now that I have one, I'm going to use it for those two specific games. And now that the battery life is better, that makes me happy. That makes me excited to actually use it and not be like, oh man, I want to take my ROG Ally over to my friend's house, but then I got to bring that specific charger and like make sure it's tethered to the wall. I could theoretically take this thing over to my best friend's house without a charger and get at least 2 to 3 hours of battery life on the game I would play on it. And that makes it worth throwing in my backpack for sure. So yeah, let's talk about the price. If you want to get the most expensive Steam Deck OLED, that's at like $649. So that's only $150 difference from the ROG Ally X. And at that point, like if you're playing a lot of Windows games, you play a lot of racing games, and you don't have a Steam Deck already, I would still give the edge to the Steam Deck, but like the channel's called Deck Ready. I'm a huge Steam Deck fanboy. I like the Steam Deck a lot. I could see an argument being made for grabbing the Ally X instead, specifically if you play a lot of those racing games that run better on it, or you play Destiny 2, Fortnite, you know, those games where the anti-cheat doesn't work on the Steam Deck. That is a big point of contention that will probably never be resolved because Epic Games hates Valve, and Destiny 2 for some reason hates Valve. So like, even though they're owned by Sony now, they're not going to go ahead and add in the right anti-cheat to make it work on Steam Deck. So if you play a lot of live service games like that, or you're looking forward to any in the future, I feel like that having the ROG Ally X would be insurance that those games are going to work if they do run on these handhelds, right? Like that's a good reason to buy it. But outside of that, you know what I'm going to recommend? Go for the cheaper version of the Steam Deck OLED and get a 1 terabyte micro SD card. If you feel like that's not enough storage, upgrade the SSD. It's super easily upgradable. And then, yeah, you're just cooking at that point with, in my opinion, the best handheld on the market. But if you're someone who enjoys Windows, loves live service games, loves Forza Horizon, and you don't really feel like you'd play a lot of the stuff that people love playing on the Steam Deck like Elden Ring or whatever, then maybe the ROG Ally X is for you. And yeah, even though you can install Bazite, I saw a great video from my friend Rich at Fan the Deck. Even though you can use big picture mode on the ROG Ally, like SteamOS running as the main OS generally, in my opinion, is better as long as you're not playing the live service games that don't work on SteamOS. And finally, I might have just said that, but this is the real finally, the price I just think is a little too high. You're getting into laptop range. You could get a used laptop with a dedicated GPU that will run on a monitor with a mouse and keyboard and give you a better experience than this handheld. If you love handhelds, I think you know if you're going to buy this or not, but like $800 is just like, that stings. And I don't think there's really anything in this handheld that they can blame on that price increase other than, of course, inflation. So yeah, it's tough because I enjoy playing on this thing a lot, but it's not enough to sway me away from the Steam Deck, and the price makes it ultimately not worth buying over a Steam Deck if you ask me. If you have a Steam Deck and you got $800 lying around and you want to play some live service stuff on the go with your mobile hotspot or whatever, go ahead and buy it. This thing is made for you. But like, if you're a first time buyer, I think still go with the Steam Deck OLED. Or even if you're just penny pinch, go for the 64 gigabyte refurbished one and upgrade it yourself. You're gonna have a ton of fun doing it, and it's literally idiot proof, like I did it. Anyway, that brings us to the second news story of today's video, which is you need to buy this toolkit immediately. So if you didn't know, Valve has been really cool with working with iFixit. It's a store where you can buy pretty much any part for the Steam Deck. So even though your Steam Deck's probably under warranty if you bought it within the past year or so, and even if you're outside of warranty, Valve usually skirts those rules, which again is very cool. Fixing stuff stuff yourself is just awesome. I love doing it on my cars. I love doing it on my Steam Deck. So right now, for $12.95 on iFixit, you can get a toolkit that gives you every tool you need to open your Steam Deck and upgrade it. Of course, it comes with an anti-static wrist bracelet thing. Of course, it comes with an anti-static ground, which is awesome because, as we all know from the very beginning, the first person to fry their Steam Deck did it because they upgraded their SSD without unplugging the battery, probably because of the electrical charge, and they were probably also giving off static. So like, yeah, use that when you're taking apart your Steam Deck. It comes with the screwdriver with the 3 bits you'll need to unlock everything inside your Steam Deck, which is great. It comes with dust brushes. It comes with guitar picks, so you can slot them in there and break those little seals that keep your Steam Deck clamped together. Like, everything you need is there, and it even comes with a little carrying bag, which is awesome. I'm buying this thing, even though I already have an iFixit kit. I just want a dedicated Steam Deck one because I am going to get a pair of those colored controller buttons to swap out on my launch LCD model Steam Deck to kind of make it a little tribute to my grandpa. I'm just going to put it on the shelf. So yeah, I need a little toolkit that has everything I need. I just wanted to give it a little PSA. It's not an affiliate or anything. I'm not making money. It's not sponsored or anything like that. It's just like a great tool because I have been in situations where I use the wrong tool to do things quicker instead of just running down the block to Ace Hardware and buying the right socket or whatever. And I have screwed up a lot of things on a lot of cars that I do not want to talk about because it got very expensive. So like, learn from my mistakes. I am definitely learning from my mistakes. I'm going to buy this toolkit immediately, and you should too. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.